Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining the first of the migration Kestrel focused drop-in sessions. Primarily, this is for suppliers who are working on the submission 2 activity. As most of you were seeing a couple of weeks ago, we sent out the URL to Kestrel with some guidance notes on how to download your plans and complete those submission templates and upload them to get the first view of those validation results. Hopefully that was fairly clear and straightforward. There's also further comms this week indicating that every Friday afternoon from 12 o'clock we will seek to open a maintenance window. Now, some of those maintenance windows may be very short or brief, and some of them may be till Monday at 9 o'clock. We need to keep that option open, as this is an iterative process where we're releasing new functionality. Today we did have a brief maintenance window update where we did a couple of changes and tweaks to the validation rules. Not that visible at the moment. The big one will be next week, where we have the full view of that update. It's probably worth opening up the floor to any questions anybody had or would like to ask in terms of how things are going.
Alf, yeah, hi, it's Alex. Just to confirm this, so in the original in the guidance documents in there, it still references populating sheets A to E or A to F or whatever it is. So just to be clear, we don't need to do that because those are the bits of information on the other tabs, and we only need to fill in the weekly template. Yeah,
that's correct. Yes. So
okay.
It's a good question. I think because of slight crossover in the comms, and we weren't committing to 100% being ready with Kestrel, so we had to keep that optionality open.
Right, okay.
Now we have Kestrel, all the information is there in the info tabs. The only other information that we were seeking to capture that is critical to us that we don't actually have available at the moment is the agent demand profiles. And the reason that that's a little bit challenging for us is that we need to make sure we've got all the master data for the agents as accurate as possible to simplify the completion of that particular sheet for suppliers. But also what we found last time, there's a lot of data quality issues in the information we received back. So we want to make it as useful as exercise as possible for everybody concerned. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, but for now, then, we don't need to provide you with that agent info, or no? Okay.
Not yet, but we will let you know when that feature becomes available.
Okay.
And that'll be a separate part of the submission. So that's probably going to be about a month away, I would have thought. So for not a little while yet.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Good question. Is it Martin? Oh no,
Richard Gatling's next.
Richard's next. Sorry.
Thanks, both. So 2 quick questions from me. One, in the meeting last week, we talked about the validation rules that weren't quite ready, and any uploads that we did would need to be resubmitted after the 20th, 22nd, maybe. Memory doesn't serve me too well these days.
It's the 23rd now. Yeah.
There you go. I was going to say, are you still on track for that next week?
Yes. So we originally had, for transparency, the Wednesday planned, but we felt that midweek was probably not the best time to do a release. So we moved it to the Friday, the 23rd, that we'll be doing the release. And so the feature will be available Monday morning, which I know is a bank holiday, but yeah.
Okay, great. And second question, previously the validation rules on the daily file were not ready for this submission. Is that still the case, and we should submit the weekly?
That's correct. So the feature to submit daily files is not there yet, because we'd have to. So we're prioritizing the validation rules for the weekly submission to make sure that's correct. because they're fairly similar, it's not that, you know, something we're seeking to do probably for the next submission round, because this could just complicate things. But you can see your daily submission file, and we do have your opt-in preference. So you need to give us that opt-in preference that you want to use that daily submission. So not everybody has that feature available to them unless they've opted in.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
For clarification, all suppliers will be mandated to provide a daily submission if you're active in the next sprint for that 2-month period.
Yeah.
Was the one
Yeah, I
you're
appreciate
talking
that
about.
about the sprints. I'm just talking about this next submission. That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just talking to other suppliers on a call who may not be aware of that subtle difference between the universal or the complete migration period daily submission, which is the one you're talking about. Thanks, Richard. Thank you, Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Could I ask a question about the validation rule 14, where you're checking the size of the envelope? I'm not convinced I know what ISLP is unless it's a reference back to the envelope calculations document.
Yes.
It is, right, okay. So the LDSO counts that you display in Kestrel, are they reflective of what you're going to validate against for that rule?
Correct. The ISLP, that's correct, yeah.
It's the initial supplier LDSO portfolio. That's what that stands for.
Right, okay. And when do you take that view of our portfolio?
It's taken from an EES snapshot, and we're getting those on a monthly basis.
Okay,
yeah.
So but when we're doing our planning, what we're doing is getting our current position out of our systems. So what are you expecting us to do? Because I mean they don't match.
Yeah, and we did expect that, and through MWG we surfaced this as a question. But what we have to do as the MCC is have to take a fixed point in time to be able to have a deterministic way to validate these inputs. What we're unable to do is actually get a view of suppliers' internal systems to represent that, and also as part of the iterative approach, we're able to effectively adjust on a regular basis to what that portfolio changes are, and also bearing in mind that pretty much all suppliers' portfolios are subject to change on a regular basis anyway. We just had to effectively make a call to try and get the closest snapshot to when we publish the envelopes, and which is what we've done this time. We literally got the snapshot a week before, so it was the latest one that we had available to us.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Alf, but with the tolerance that you've declared in that validation, I'm taking our snapshot as close as we can to when we think you took yours, but it's still going to fail that validation rule.
Yes, so that's spot on, and which is why we've got one of the enhancements on the validation rule coming in next week, which allows a tolerance.
Okay.
So it will give you a warning if you've got some drift. I wish I could remember. Is Anna on the call?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the way we've implemented the tolerances. We can probably we feel free to share what we're targeting that warnings to come in at.
Yeah, so the warnings will be at 0.1%, and then I think it's a fail for a 1% difference. So would that work for you, or is that still not?
So yes, I think we need to clarify on that. So it's 0.1% where your portfolio ISLP follows envelope rules.
Okay.
So that means it's within an LDSO that's greater than 150,000 MPANs, or your portfolio within that LDSO is greater than 40,000 MPANs, right? So therefore you're following envelope rules
Okay.
and not de minimis rules. If you're following envelope rules, you've got 0.01% tolerance. Yeah.
Can I turn it around the other way and
Yeah.
say, if we're a supplier that works on de minimis or
Yeah.
the other one, small portfolio, I think, which is even smaller than that,
Yeah.
are you not going to check our sizes at all?
We are checking the sizes, and we have a different tolerance for that. So it's a good point.
And what's that one?
So good point. And the de minimis tolerance, I'm just trying to make sure I structure this so it makes sense, is follows. So I think it's if is it 0.1% again? No, it's not, is it, Anna?
No, it's five. I think it's 500, isn't it?
Yeah, so
It's,
there's a two-tier tolerance, isn't there? So there's
yeah.
so it's configurable within the system. So it's either 0.01%, which is what we've got configured at the moment, or it is X hundred, and I forget what the X is. But again, both of those are configurable values, aren't they? So it's whichever is the greater of those two.
Yeah, so it's 500.
500, yeah.
Which is the small portfolio size. So, and also there's a final catch condition, but it has to be at least 1 because we've detected a presence in that LDSO.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So I mean, the on our side, it's just not possible for us to reconstruct back to a date so that we marry up with when you took your extract. And I'm not sure we know what that date is anyway. So we're always going to be slightly out. I don't know how much we're going to be out until we try it. But the only mechanism that I can see in order to get a valid file is to fudge our figures in order to pass your validation.
Yeah, so one thing we can take
Which
away
sounds
as an action
to me to be a bit counterproductive.
Understood. But one things we can take away is make sure we provide the date of the ES data cut that we took. So you've at least got a bit more. There's an easier way for you to align that rather than the approach you're taking at the moment. And furthermore, as I said, it's something that's always changing anyway. And as you probably recognise, every supplier has got a different data cut, but we have to have some kind of certainty for us to be able to validate that the plans make sense across the board. But yes, we're trying to just balance that, which is why we're introducing this whole concept of a tolerance to warn.
Yeah, as long as the tolerances, bluntly, are high enough so that we can get what we have actually got through, it will work. But if it doesn't, the only thing that I'm not sure that knowing when you're going to take your extract is going to help us. It might reduce the error size, but we're still working against our internal systems. That's all we've got. And if they don't marry up with when you've taken your extract, the only thing that we can do is work on the truth that we've got. And then if it fails, we'll just have to add or take some MPANs off. And we don't know what those MPANs are because they don't actually exist.
Yeah, I fully understand the problem. So for us, obviously, what you're seeking to do, and we do applaud that, is to try and get an as accurate a plan as possible, given your current position. Where we are at the moment is very much in a forecast mode, so it's probably less problematic. When we do get into active sprint planning for that 2-month period, for those suppliers who actively sprint, it might be a bit more relevant. But again, as it's you're drawing down in your portfolio, it's only when we get towards the end of your portfolio and you're getting those dwindling numbers that becomes more critical. And that's perhaps where we will seek to fine tune it a little bit more.
Okay.
Hopefully that makes sense. So again, it's just trying to not make it too complicated for everybody, but also make it useful for everybody. So it's a good point, and I do appreciate that, and we'll think about it.
Okay, thank you.
Robert Johnston. Robert?
Hello. Yes, sorry. I'm just turning off the mute. most of the questions I had, you've answered, from what the discussion's been. But concerning the agent capacity, we are in June about to commence a complete migration of all our agents. You want to say so? We are consolidating down to a single agent in June. So you know to say it's a, but it sounds, from what I gathered from what you've said, that sort of capacity planning for the agents is probably not as vital in this submission.
Yes, at this point in time, I'll still try and make it part of submission 2, but as I said, we've not delivered that feature to be able to collect that information at the moment.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. That's what, because I was a bit concerned. It's right bang in the middle of us doing that. So okay, thank you.
Yeah. So what we're trying to do is obviously help people focus on this targeted activity for the actual migration planning, and then we'll separate out the capacity part separately because we're still working on that. But obviously, once we start getting into the actual sprint cadence, they will actually come at the same time.
Okay, thank you. That's fine. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Christian.
Couple questions from me. So one is in one of the pieces of documentation, the migration ones, it says no migrations will be, or MHHS have made the assumption that no migrations will be planned when the INC contract rounds are happening. But does that mean we still can plan for migrations during those timeframes, or we shouldn't, or is there any sort of detriment if we do?
In short, you won't be able to, because within the submission templates, we have a concept of migration days. So if you...
Have they been zeroed out? Is that where you put 0 in those?
Yeah, so when you look at the daily granularity template, you'll see that there's zeroed out. You have no envelope issued for those days. And then obviously, if you look at the weekly one, your capacity is being diminished to show that obviously it's taken into account the fact that there are no migration days. So one obvious example is Christmas, where there's 0, you'll have a 0 envelope for that Christmas period.
Yeah.
And also those contract round periods as well, they're 0.
So that's the column that's called count migration day, that one.
Yeah, so there's counter migration days. And then if you look at your envelope, it will be 0, where that is 0 because you can't do any migrations at that same time.
Okay.
So it's constrained by the envelope also.
So wherever there is like a count migration day is a positive integer, that is just the day we can migrate if we want to, basically, and if it's 0, we can't.
Yeah, so there'll be 5 migration days or 4 or 3 or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you look at the daily template, it will have the daily view of that. What we would ordinarily do is publish a migration calendar, which we did previously. We'd make that available, and that would be a single view of all the migration and non-migration days, and any sort of how the sprints roll out as well. But we'll be providing that soon as a supporting material to help you understand the construction of the migration calendar itself and the overall migration sprints.
Mm-hmm. Okay, because that is in reference, the INC contract is in reference to like April and October. Is that what you're referring to there? And that's where I can see it drops down to two days in those weeks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Fine. Okay. Thanks. And then the other one is around. So I think there's another thing online, one of the documents about kind of leaving a day a week to resolve any exceptions between agents, LDSOs, and suppliers for any kind of failed migration that you plan to do. So if like we kind of figure out a new date to kind of reinitiate that migration, are we able to just submit that our replanned plan into Kestrel during the migration window which then accounts for those failed ones, basically. That might be added to like the end of our migration plan, or in another week, future week, basically. Is that going to be something where it's possible to do quite easily?
So you're talking about a scenario where you're actively migrating and you're planning for the next sprint, what you're going to be actively migrating in the next sprint. Yeah, for that 2-month period. Is that correct?
Right, so that's how the 2-month thing is. What? So is it what we're submitting something every 2 months? Is it? Or
Yeah. So for the moment, what we're looking at are forecast plans that are a weekly granularity. What you're submitting now, and the purpose of that is for the Migration Control Centre to understand the viability of achieving all the M15 objectives and where there could be contention and capacity across suppliers. So that's why we're looking at getting this forecast view now. When you're actively migrating, it becomes a committed plan for that next 2 months that you're going to be migrating for. So that's that shorter horizon of certainty that all suppliers have.
And just to say, on top of that, you can apply for unused capacity if you do need to do something mid-sprint.
Yeah, which is the next point. Because once we have that, because we have to plan to certainty in what we know. So for that 2 months, all the suppliers that are actively migrating within that window have to give us a committed plan. Once we have all those committed plans collected, we then know the available capacity. We issue what's called an unused capacity report. And then when and if you need it, you have, I think it's 2 days. As long as you give I think it's 2 to 3 days notice of any unused capacity you wish to use to deal with those, we can look to see if we can allow that to happen.
And then so then in the next, after 2 months, then when we submit our our plan for the next 2 months, which we then lock into or commit to, that could include MPANs that kind of failed in the 2 months before, for example. If that is the case, we can then add that onto the next sprint kind of thing.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out that we have actually factored in reserve capacity for retries, so there will be capacity available for that mid-sprint.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And also, to be clear, the unused capacity is in flight in the current sprint. So if you're in a sprint and it's in that 2-month sprint execution and you want to catch up in the next week, you could submit an unused capacity request and we will adjust your plans accordingly for that next week and reissue your plan in flight in the sprint.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. If you look I think it's in the choreography and the requirements document. So that's 4 and 5.
Thank you.
Yeah, please reach out if you need that little bit more clarification, but hopefully that's useful to you. Hi, Alex.
Do you want to come back in?
Yeah, thanks. The for non-SIT suppliers, the individual supplier ramp-up bit, is that detailed within the template as populated with a 1 in the relevant column, or should we be looking in one of the myriad of guidance documents to work out what that period of time should be?
So the ramp up is defined by SRU, 001 velocity period.
Right. So
is that, yeah? So if you look in there, that tells you.
In the template, you mean?
Yeah, in the template. Because it's individual to each supplier.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. So it's not, there's not, let me just open it up again a second. Oh, right. Okay. So in the column velocity period.
Yeah, so you have 01 SRU or IRU. So it means either industry ramp up or supplier ramp up.
Okay. Yeah.
And then 02 CMW is the core migration window. That's right, where you're getting the full availability of your envelope. And then where it goes down to a scaling factor of 10%, it's the 03 was it ramp down window, RDW.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's fine. Yeah, fine. Thank you.
hopefully that makes sense. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it does, yeah.
Good. Is there anything you want to add, Kev, while we're waiting for more questions?
No, I think that's everything. It's been helpful. Hello, Neil.
You on mute? Still can't hear you, Neil.
He says he's stuck on mute.
So you can dial out and dial back in. While we're waiting for Neil to jump back, just like to thank everybody for taking the time, and hopefully everything's going well with your putting together your submissions and your plans. As I said, we're still targeting 23rd of May next week for the update and the validation and the making available the nominations, because we'll have it fully tested by then. Please keep your eye out for comms next week. I think that's pretty much it from our side. As always, please contact Kestrel on the support email if you've got any inquiries. Neil, was that? Sorry, it's Moyne.
Hi guys. I'm sure we have covered this question, but I would like to ask if our planned migration start date that we have mentioned in the previous PPIR, I believe, if that changes, so how would that affect our weekly submission template? Do we need to inform the program team so that they can update it on Kestrel, and we'll fill in the revised weekly submission template, or how would that work?
So the first thing is to make sure as much as possible that you've got a feasible migration start date, that when you've confirmed it to us. Once we publish the templates, that's what everybody's planning to, based on that migration start date. So it's we can't really change it once we've issued the envelopes. So you'd have to wait for the next time we'd issue the envelopes for us to be able to consider that new change in your migration start date. As it's a key data point, it needs to come from your principal migration contact, that is a change to what you're intending to do. And then we'll factor that in as in the next planning round.
Okay, so it wouldn't be possible in this migration sprint.
No, because we'd have to regenerate all the other suppliers' templates, which they're obviously making their plans with at this current moment.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Warren.
Thanks, Kevin. And just to answer Moyen, just his question, I think maybe just reach out to us separately, and we can just better understand. I mean, the factors that influence it would be the size of your portfolio and the delta between the date you gave us and your current date. So I just suggest just reach out to us separately and let's just take a look at it. But I do agree with Alf, we have to kind of lock these dates down, because capacity, moving those dates will influence other parties' capacity. But if you can just reach out to us separately, we'll look at those factors and then we'll come back to you.
Mm-hmm. And at what email ID can I reach out to you guys?
Alf, which is best, the migration or the Kestrel one?
Probably just to keep it stickers to the Kestrel one. Kestrel at MHHS Programme.co.uk. We can put that in the chat for you.
Okay, that works. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Aaron.
Okay, Neil asked a question in the chat and Anna's gone back to him, but it's related to updating the guidance, which we've confirmed we will be doing.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Just checking there's any more questions, because we've worked 2 minutes past now.
Okay, there are no further hands up, Alf. So
Okay, thank you everyone. And once we so we will have a following drop-in sessions should we need it. So you can ask further questions. And as always, you can also contact the Kestrel mailbox if you've got any burning questions that need answering. Okay, thank you everyone.
Thanks both.
Thank
Have a good
you.
weekend.
Bye bye.